Hello, good morning. Today we are actually going to see a case of COPD. As we couldn't get a patient, Dr. Midun is actually helping us with it, and Dr. Manikandan also. So today we are going to see a case of COPD. So how to approach a case of COPD? This is not actually a complete respiratory system examination, but pertaining to the topic. So what you should be asking a COPD patients and what you should be looking forward to see in a COPD patients in general examination, in systemic examination, and how you can go forward with the same. So as you all are aware, COPD is becoming a very common case nowadays, and as far as your exam is concerned, it's a very important topic. So basically we have two types, the chronic bronchitis and emphysema. And when I talk about chronic bronchitis, it is more of a cough predominant COPD, and emphysema is a dyspnea predominant COPD. So, and you will be aware of it. So, presentation of both these topics or probably diseases are in a different way, and both these are having different presentation as well. So, when you, I'll be taking the history only in a very brief mode, because more I will be concentrating on the examination part of COPD. So, for example, in history, the patient can come with cough, the patient can come with dyspnea, the patient can come with expectoration along with the cough, and the patient can come with chest pain. So, in which all instances these patient come with. So, in when there is cough, patient is coming with cough, we should be asking what type of a cough is it, then what is the diurnal variation, is it more in the morning, more in the night, or during the day, and then whether it is actually associated with expectoration or sputum production. So what is the significance of this question? So probably, as you all know, this can be an infective exacerbation of the COPD. We have some some investigation which has to be done for what type of infection this person contracted. So, and the cough, whether it is a dry one or a productive one. Okay. Then as far as dyspnea is concerned, you should always, any of these symptoms, as we always say, it should be assessed in this way, like onset, duration, progression, aggravating and relieving factors, and what are the complications associated with it. So, as dyspnea, we should always check what kind of problem it is and what is the reason for the dyspnea. As far as COPD is concerned, there are so many mechanisms of dyspnea. As far as COPD is concerned, the reason for dyspnea is increased work of breathing. As there is bronchoconstriction or an obstruction to the outflow, the main reason is the increased work of breathing. And subsequently, in dyspnea, what we should do is we have to grade what type or probably what is the grade of dyspnea. We have Modified Medical Research Council classification and NYHA classification to assess the severity of dyspnea. So, accordingly, we have 4 grades in MMRC as we are concerned or probably dealing with COPD case today. So, we are more in for the Modified Medical Research Council classification. There also we assess whether the patient is having slight limitation, marked limitation, whether the patient is able to keep up with the contemporaries, or whether the patient is not at all able to do any kind of an activity or probably even at rest. So, we were talking about the same. We have to classify the type of dyspnea. So, for cardiovascular system, we opt for a New York Heart Association NYHA classification, and the other a Medical Research MMRC classification. So, after grading that, we have to assess what is the patient's status. So, and another thing along with just dyspnea, another thing that we ask the patient or probably which includes in the history part is whether the patient was having any kind of an edema or probably most of the time a peripheral edema. So, the peripheral edema, if the patient is complaining of, then always we have to think of a complication or probably a decompensated disease where the right heart failure has come and which caused a peripheral edema. So these are some of the short history. What I have not told it in an elaborate way. This is just some of the short history that the patient can come with. So now we'll actually move into the examination part of COPD. So basically, when a patient comes, as we all know, the position of the patient is very important. So because for each system, or probably to do an examination, and for a proper positioning of the patient is very important. And initially you have to always take a consent of the patient, and then once the consent is acquired, you have to adequately position the patient, and then needs without saying that we have to have a well lit room, probably or preferably a sunlight should be there. If not, you have to do otherwise. So first, there are certain things in general examination that you need to check for COPD. So one thing you have to see is, so what is the attitude, or probably the decubitus of the patient? What is the decubitus of the patient, or the attitude of the patient at the time of examination? So usually if the patient is having difficulty in breathing, the patient will be distressed in case of a COPD, or mainly in emphysema. Then one of the position that the patient attains in a severe COPD is the tripod position. Can I just demonstrate the tripod position? This will be, see, and stoop a little forward. So this is, as you can see, this is the tripod position where the three pods are there, 1, 2 and 3. So what is the advantage of such a position? So basically the advantage is, as you all know, in COPD the basic problem is hyperinflation of the chest and the increased in the dead space of the lung. That is the space of active gaseous exchange is being reduced constantly due to CO2 trapping. So what happens? The patient will be distressed. So when a person attains this kind of a position, knowingly or unknowingly, what happens is he attains a comfortable position so that the length and the tension ratio of the chest is somewhat maintained. And what another thing is, I will be talking about the accessory group of muscles in COPD. So there are certain recruitment done by certain accessory muscles like the sternocleidomastoids and trapezius and all those things. So those things can be drastically reduced when the person knowingly or unknowingly, I underscore that, so when they attain such a position. So before that, so this is one thing, that is the decubitus. Then as you all know, you have to always check for our regular examination like pallor, icterus. Pallor and all, always when the patient of the pallor can be seen in cases of chronic bronchitis, and there will be a in emphysema there might be a polycythemia or a secondary polycythemia can be seen in emphysema. Then so pallor can be seen. Then cyanosis. So usually as COPD is a place where there will be hypoxia as well as hypercapnia, we always expect a type 2 respiratory failure in COPD. So what happens is, and as you all know, you will be aware, the cyanosis, it is central and peripheral. So we expect a central cyanosis in case of emphysema, isn't it? So that is one thing that you have to check for the central cyanosis. And then other thing is the peripheral cyanosis, if it is there will be bluish discoloration of the peripheral of the periphery. Then clubbing is not usually present in COPD, but one cause, or probably if clubbing is present in COPD, you have to be, that's like a warning sign or a red flag sign. So we always have to suspect lung malignancy in case of a clubbing in COPD. So usually it is not a common finding that you get in COPD. Then definitely the next thing that you have to check is whether the patient is having a peripheral edema. So for instance, I told you earlier, I think the reason for peripheral edema is right heart failure and the pressure variation inside the vasculature. So, when you get a a patient of COPD with peripheral edema, we always have to suspect something called as cor pulmonale. Okay. So, that is like a decompensated lung problem, probably the pulmonary hypertension or the secondary pulmonary hypertension which is causing the right heart to fail, and in turn the pressure variation which is happening in the vessel can predispose to all the fluid retention and along with that the peripheral edema. So, that is one reason. So, these are the things that we have to check in case of in general examination. And as far as the vitals are concerned, there are certain changes or probably the pulse and all those things has to be examined properly, because as you all know, in severe cases of bronchial asthma or a COPD, you can always get a pulsus paradoxus. And regarding the pulsus paradoxus, the detail regarding the pulsus paradoxus will be covered in other general examination classes. So, just remember that there will be a pulsus paradoxus in case of a severe COPD or a bronchial asthma. Then another pulse that can be anticipated or probably is the pulsus alternans, where you have a alternate high and low amplitude pulse. So, that is only seen in when the patient go into an overt cardiac failure or a left ventricular failure. As I told you earlier, predominantly it will be a right heart failure initially in case of COPD. This can actually progress to a biventricular failure or a congestive cardiac failure. So, that can always show in case of with a pulsus alternans. So, these are some of the things trachea and all I will be covering in the subsequent inspection part. Okay, and yeah, there are certain signs actually. Yes, I forgot. There are two signs that you need to. There are some tracheal signs in case of COPD, and I will talk about that. So, as you can see here, so this is the suprasternal notch. This is the tracheal cartilage, or probably okay. So, as you can see, this is easily I can actually keep 4 fingers here. Okay, 4 fingers. So, this length is reduced in case of COPD cases. This length is reduced. Okay. So, that is the reason why that tracheal descent is there, or probably the distance is reduced is. One thing is due to this hyperinflation of the chest in COPD, the clavicle and the associated the bones are coming up, or probably so that causes the shortening. Okay. So, that is one reason. So, and we have something called as the the Campbell sign, that is the decreased tracheal descent. You should never confuse this between tracheal tug. Okay, tracheal tug and tracheal descents are two things. Okay, where do you get a tracheal tug? You get a tracheal tug in case of when you see the trachea or probably the cartilage moving in each heartbeat. That is during an aortic aneurysm. Okay, that is due to that pull. But in case of tracheal descent or a Campbell sign, this is due to a pull, or probably when as the diaphragm is somewhat contracted, each respiration pulls the trachea somewhat down. That is called a tracheal descent or a Campbell sign. Then again in tracheal tug, as you all know, that is called as Oliver sign. Okay, if you remember, that is Oliver sign. So, this is one thing. Then another thing I forgot to say, it should have told before the trachea, is the pursed lip breathing. Okay, Midun, can you just make this okay? Yes. So, what happens in case of a COPD, in a severe COPD, the person will be attaining a tripod position mostly, and they will try to breathe through a pursed lip. You all know what is a purse, isn't it? So, the lip is yes. So, see, so this kind of a thing will be attained again knowingly or unknowingly. The thing is, what is the advantage of the person breathing like this? Excuse me. So, when a person is breathing like this, or a COPD patient, please try to breathe like this. I will show you. See, so So when you do this pursed lip breathing, okay, enough, thank you. So one advantage is it creates a positive airway pressure inside or probably distal to this system. And one more thing is, as I told you, the COPD, there will be a CO2 retention. Or the patient can actually increase the expiration or probably regulate the expiration, so that it helps in a very smaller way to wash out carbon dioxide. So all these things are being happen unknowingly. Somewhat in the distress, the patient attains a position where all these things are done. So this is one thing I wanted to talk about. So in general examination, these are some of the things that we need to check. So now, as far as the the inspection part is concerned, this the respiratory system inspection part, there are so many things to be inspected. So first thing, before an examination, as I told you, the positioning of the patient is very, very important. So basically we prefer to do a respiratory system examination in a sitting posture. Okay, so as I told you, I am not going into a detail of the respiratory system examination, but only important things which are concerned with COPD, what you need to look in respiratory system. A detailed class of respiratory system will be taken later on. A demonstration will be done later on. So what happens? Ask the patient to sit straight, or probably the best way he can sit. So basically these are the areas of respiratory system that we are going to see. One is the supraclavicular area, infraclavicular area, mammary area, axillary area, infraaxillary area, and then posteriorly suprascapular, infrascapular. Maybe you can just turn around. Yes, the suprascapular area, interscapular area, and the infra or subscapular area. Okay. So yes, thank you. So ideally, when you examine the patient, you need to have a clear field. So for this, if you are planning to check on the anterior chest, the best way to position the patient is you ask the patient, yes, one as doctor has done, same way. You can ask the patient to keep the hand by the side, or you can ask the patient to keep it on the lap, or another one, you can ask somewhat to keep the hands on the hip. So these are the three methods where you can examine the patient properly. Okay, yes, fine, thank you. So now first is inspection. So there are certain shortcomings in this examination, as the patient is, or probably the doctor is dressed, so we couldn't get a patient. So we are doing it over the dress, and I'm trying to demonstrate the findings, probably which will be useful for you. So first thing you have to check is, in case of COPD, I told you again, in inspection, what are the things to be seen? Usually what will be there? Trachea, I told, or probably, can I just remove one button? Yes. So one thing is the accessory group of muscle, the sternocleidomastoid may be prominent, or the accessory group of muscle, one of the accessory group of muscles, the sternocleidomastoid, that might be prominent due to the use of accessory muscles to support the respiration. So that is one thing. So again, we need to check for the trail side. This is an inspection part. Excuse me, inspection part. So you need not, touch the patient. So one thing is trail sign which need to check. What is trail sign? It is the prominence of the clavicular head of the sternocleidomastoid on a particular side. So that actually is seen where there is a pull of trachea towards a particular side, or probably the trachea towards a particular side in collapse, fibrosis, and all those things. And this is seen due to the lax of the pretracheal fascia. Okay. So, and again in inspection, one thing you have to check is what happens in case of COPD. Patients actually, due to hyperinflation, possibly the chest movement might be restricted. The expansion of the chest, or probably the shape of the chest, is also altered. So usually what shape do you get on a chest, or probably in a resting state ellipsoidal, but in this case, or probably in COPD, the expected or an advanced COPD or emphysema, it is barrel shaped chest. What do you mean by a barrel shaped chest? This is probably what happens, the anteroposterior and the transverse diameter equals. We will be measuring it probably with in the palpation. So it is a barrel shaped chest. Can you get one tape? Tape or not? Just ask. Okay. So that is one thing. The shape of the chest is very important. Okay. So then other things that we need to see in inspection is whether the patients actually, there are some things where the ribs are, whether it is wide spaced, whether the ribs are wide spaced. Due to hyperinflation, the ribs will be wide spaced in case of a COPD. So that has to be seen. Then other thing is, main thing is the subcostal angle. So what is the subcostal angle? It is the angle in the center, isn't it? So this is your costal cartilage. So this is the subcostal angle. Yes, as seen. Can you see this? Yes. So this is the subcostal angle. So what happens? Usually it is around 70 degrees. Okay. So what happens in case of a COPD or an emphysema? So this angle becomes more obtuse. That means it becomes, or it increases. So what happens? Why is this happening? So as there is hyperinflation, the diaphragm is being pushed down. So when the diaphragm is being pushed down, thank you. So diaphragm is being pushed down. So that causes the subcostal angle to become more obtuse. So so that is one thing that you have to check in case of inspection. Okay. Next, the thing is, so there are certain things, how the movement of chest, what are the movement, or probably what are the anticipated movement of the each part of the chest, and what is, or probably what are the anticipated chest expansion. All these things has to be assessed. So what happens? So as you all know, this is the anterior chest wall, this is the superior, this is the posterior. So this portion of the chest has to move forward, isn't it? And again, this portion, or probably the apical region, has to move upwards. So when I come to the palpation, I will show you exactly how to see or probably feel for the movement of the chest. So this is just an observation, inspection part, where we are seeing whether the chest is moving. So one possibility in case of COPD, one thing is, already as the chest is hyperinflated and the movement of the chest will be very much restricted. Another thing is, there are certain complications for emphysema where the emphysematous bullae gets ruptured and a pneumothorax happen. Even that portion also might not move. Okay. So we were talking about a subcostal angle. There are certain other things like shoulders, spine, then again the the spino-scapular distance. There are so many points to be discussed, but now I am just doing it in concern of emphysema or a COPD case. So that is why I am going to omit so many or some of the details in examination. So let's come to the palpation part. Okay. But coming about the palpation, first thing, again you have to, as we all know how to, as we have seen in inspection how to check for the trachea, in the palpation part you always have to check for the, or for feel for, or probably substantiate whatever you just told in inspection has to be confirmed in palpation. So this is how you feel for the trachea. You fix your hand on the medial end of the clavicle, and yes, this position cannot be attained. You have to actually semi-flex. A full extension or a full flexion is not needed. So it is a semi-flexed state where you keep your fingers and you go through the longitudinal dimension of the, see, can you see this? Yes, this is how you just feel for the trachea and then try to poke on both the sides of the cartilage, so that where your finger is being passed. So, any kind of a deviation to any part will obstruct your finger. Okay. So, that is one thing. So, now we inspected a lot of things, isn't it? Yes, in inspection, sorry, I just forgot one thing. One more thing, important thing in inspection is to look for the apical impulse. Okay, apical impulse. So, what is the significance of apical impulse and COPD or probably emphysema? As it is a hyperinflated chest, the apical impulse might not be seen or probably might not be found on the usual site. So, the same thing can be confirmed in the palpation part. So, now I will just show you how to check for the movements of the chest. So, first thing we will start with the apical region. So, in order to check for the apical region, what we do is we have to go to the or go behind the patient to the posterior part and then stand behind the patient and examine. So, for convenience I am asking our subject to stand and just turn around. Okay. So, this is the apical portion of the lungs. So, in order to see for the movement, what is the movement that we are expecting? Excuse me. We are expecting a slight upward movement of the the apex. So, what you should do? You have to go stand behind the patient and then you hold above the shoulders or probably above the shoulder, and you approximate your finger here. You then please take a deep breath, Midun. Yes. Can you see this? Can you see my hand is moving up? Can you notice this? Yes. Yes. This is how it moves. Okay. So, this is how you have to check for the apex. Thank you. So, and now the next thing is the anterior chest wall. So, now this portion of the chest, that is the upper chest and the lower chest. Okay. So, upper anterior and lower anterior. Okay. So, actually this portion, okay, this moves like a pipe handle. So, have you seen a pipe handle? You would have seen the pipes, roadside pipes the corporation installs, isn't it? So, you have that thing to do all those things. So, you have seen that movement of that handle, it goes down and it goes up, isn't it? So, the same way the upper portion of the chest moves up. So, now how to check for this? So, how to check for this? I will just show you. You take your hand, keep it over the chest. Okay? Yes. Okay. So, keep it over the chest. So, take a deep inspiration. See. As you can see, my hand is moving like this. Can you see this? This is how? Yeah. See, this is the movement that we are expecting. So, and one more thing, that is the upper part. Then the lower part. So, lower part, for that what you should do is, we always tell it as a bucket handle movement. You would have seen buckets, isn't it? From both the sides you can grab the handle and do this. So, bucket handle, it moves like this. The movement is like this. So, what I am doing is, can I just show this? Yes. Yeah. I am holding it like this and then I am asking the patient to inspire. So, in this there is a medial part and a lateral part. So, what for the medial part? So, we have to assess the medial movement as well as the lateral movement. And then, so in order to assess the medial movement, we keep our lateral part of the hand firm and we ask the patient to take a deep inspiration. See, can you see this? Yes, my thumb is moving apart. So, that is the medial movement. Now, we are going to assess the lateral movement. So, for that you keep your thumb here steady and then ask the patient to inspire, sorry. Yes, can you see this, the movement, my hand's movement? See, so this is the lateral movement. So, the same way you can do to the posterior side also, I am not showing. So this is how you assess for the movement. Now, one important thing is, now the next thing is to check for the chest expansion, which is very, very important. Okay, so how to check for the chest expansion? And okay, sorry, before the chest expansion, one thing is you have to always check for the antero-posterior diameter and the transverse diameter. Okay, I'll just show you because we don't have a book or a cardboard right now. You have it? Yeah. You can get it, it will be good. And the book. So, what we basically do, this is the transverse diameter, okay, and this is the, or probably this is the transverse diameter and this part is the antero-posterior diameter. So, usually what happens is, or how it is in the ratio of 7:5. Like the transverse diameter will be more than the antero-posterior diameter. So, there is a way to check for this in the patient. Yes. So, see, one thing is you might need to take the help of the patient or another person sometimes for this. What we do is we insert, or probably we keep it one cardboard or something here, the another one over here. So, then what we do is we measure. So, what we do is we measure this distance. Okay. So, this distance, or probably I have just roughly kept it. So, this is the antero-posterior, sorry, you have to keep it a little more up. Okay. Then you try to measure this. Yes, then again you ask the patient or probably the person to hold this for you, or maybe you can just come down. Come. Yes. Side. Okay. Hold this. Yes. And this is how, or probably I can hold it now. Then you try to measure it between these two. Yes. See, this is how you can measure. So, this is how you take for the antero-posterior measurement. And now, yes. Listen. Thank you. So, usually the transverse diameter is more than antero-posterior diameter. So, what happens in case of an emphysema? Both this equals. So, probably we get a barrel shaped chest, or probably the dimension becomes equal, 5:5 or 2:2, whatever it is. So, this is how to check for the antero-posterior and transverse diameter. Now, next thing is the chest expansion. So, for this chest expansion, what we do is we actually place. Okay. So, what happens is we actually take the tape and keep it or place between, or probably at the level of the nipple, and then yes, then we take a measurement of this and we ask the patient to take a deep inspiration. Just take a deep inspiration. See, can you see this movement, or probably 1 second, I'll just do it one more time. Yes. Okay. Just take a deep inspiration. Once more. Yes. Can you see this movement? Yes. So, this movement, or probably this movement is the measurement of chest expansion. Usually, people have 3 to 5 centimeter of chest expansion. So, in case of in case of a COPD, this chest expansion is drastically reduced. So, that will be less than 2 or 1 centimeter in case of an emphysema. Another thing, you have to check for the hemithorax. So, it is the same way, but only on one side. Yes, slightly. Yeah, in the back. So, from the spinous process, we actually assess for the hemithorax till the Ziffy sternum. Okay, so, and then why we do this hemithorax? It is very important, because if there is what do you say, an increased hemithorax or probably increased value with increase in size, there are certain conditions that you need to be careful of, like pneumothorax, like pleural effusion. If the hemithorax is decreased with decreased movement, so we actually suspect collapse, fibrosis and all those things on that particular side. And if the hemithorax is normal with decreased movement, what will happen, or probably with no change, usually happens in consolidation. So hemithorax is one of the very, very important measurement that you need to check. So this is regarding the measurement of the chest. So now there are certain things. Now the same thing as I told you, next is something, if the patient, for example in this case like a COPD, if the patient has gone into a cor pulmonale, when the patient is having a right ventricular failure, or probably if the patient has a right ventricular failure, there are certain things that actually you need to take care of, like a parasternal heave and an epigastric pulsation, otherwise it is not needed. Those are the findings. The parasternal heave, you actually get a heave on the left parasternal region and it is seen in right ventricular hypertrophy. Again you can see epigastric pulsation. This is how you check for the epigastric pulsation. Excuse me, epigastric pulsation, that is also seen in right ventricular hypertrophy. So you might need to include this in your palpation if your patient is a cor pulmonale case. Then another thing is the tactile vocal fremitus. So what is tactile vocal fremitus? This is, you actually keep your ulnar border in each rib spaces, okay, and one thing, in each rib spaces you have to keep it, and it should be alternative, or probably you have to do both sides together and then go to the next space, okay. So this is how you check for it. Excuse me. So, and what you do actually, you ask the patient to tell something like 1 1 or something, you just tell sorry
1 1
Purashma
1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1.
Okay, so you go on comparing. So there are instances where this tactile vocal fremitus is reduced. So in our case, for COPD, the TVF or tactile vocal fremitus is going to be decreased. So there are so many instances where it is increasing. I am not going to talk about it now. In COPD emphysema, it is reduced. Excuse me. So that is the part of, or probably regarding palpation. So the next is percussion. So you all be aware of what is pleximeter, what is plexer and all those things. Those are the basics. I am not going to talk about it. So our percussion is also to the same areas what we did in inspection or palpation. So basically the supraclavicular area, the clavicle, the infraclavicular area, mammary, axillary, infraaxillary, suprascapular, infrascapular and interscapular. So what happens? So the percussion, what we do is, we again when you do the percussion also, you have to check whether there is a resonant percussion, a dull percussion, a hyper resonant percussion or an impaired percussion. So in case of emphysema, what you get, as there is an air trapping, increased air trapping, you have a hyper resonant percussion. So as there is more air filled or probably trapped inside, you get a hyper resonant percussion. So you have to percuss and see. So each way you can either go like this, okay, you can compare the side and go along. So this is how you check for the hyper resonance in case of COPD or emphysema. There are certain other things that you need to percuss and see in case of a COPD. One thing is tidal percussion. What do you mean by tidal percussion? So where is the normal liver dullness usually? So we all know where is the normal liver dullness. So we actually, you get a dullness in the fifth space in the mid clavicular line, or probably on the anterior side, seventh on the axillary part, and ninth on the posterior part. So these are the liver dullness. Anteriorly we get on the fifth space. So what usually happens to this liver dullness in a normal chest? So as you all know, the liver is in a very close proximity with the diaphragm. So what happens when there is an expansion or when inspiration happens? Yes, the diaphragm moves down, the liver goes down. So what is expected? As we inspire, the liver should go down. So when the liver goes down, what happens? The dullness also goes down, one or two spaces. So in case of COPD, there is some difference. As the chest is already hyperinflated and there is a flattened diaphragm, there is no much compliance, or probably there is no much movement of the chest. The movement of the diaphragm along with the liver is very minimal. So you don't get that shift. What usually we actually percuss and go, you get a dullness. We ask the patient to take a deep inspiration. Take a deep inspiration. Yes. Then again, what happens? Where you got a liver dullness, when the person takes a deep inspiration, you will get a resonant note as the liver moves down. But in emphysema, that is not happening. So you always have to check for the tidal percussion. That is very important. Okay. And so again, for as far as the percussion is concerned, you have to start from the supraclavicular fossa, and for that you have to go behind the patient and percuss, and then you come to the infraclavicular, mammary, axillary, infraaxillary, and the posterior part, suprascapular, infrascapular, and interscapular. So these things are being done in percussion. Okay. So and there are certain other signs that I want to tell when I talk about the ribs. There is something called as Hoover sign. So what is Hoover sign? Actually, it should have been covered in the inspection, but for information sake, I am telling you. So there is something called as Hoover sign. There is something called as abdominal paradox, or probably the movement of abdomen in case of COPD. So Hoover sign is when the person is taking a deep inspiration, or when the rib cage. Usually what happens when you take an inspiration, isn't it? When you take an inspiration, the chest is going to move up, or probably the cartilage or rib cage is going to move up. But in case of COPD, what happens? The lower rib cage gets sucked in, or probably it comes in. So due to some problem. So what happens is, this is called as a Hoover sign. Or what happens in emphysema, usually this has to move apart. When the person's chest expands, the lateral or probably the lower ribs actually comes in. So that is called as Hoover sign. Another thing is the abdominal paradox. What is that? Usually the abdomen, when you take an inspiration, the abdomen comes in, and when you take an expiration, it goes up. But in case of COPD, what happens? Due to the diaphragmatic problem, when you take or probably when the chest moves up, when the person expires, what happens? The abdomen is sucked in. So this is the abdominal paradox, or probably this is the thing what is happening. So I just wanted to tell you that. Okay, so now we have completed the percussion part. Next we go to auscultation. So what are the findings that you or probably anticipate in case of a COPD or emphysema case? So one thing is, usually in COPD, areas remains the same. So one thing you have to always initially go check for the breath sounds. So what happens, or probably what will you find in breath sounds in COPD? Basically, as there is bronchoconstriction and all those things, you most of the time get a silent chest. So you might not find as a normal breath sound, you might not find anything. Okay, the same way you can also actually auscultate for the posterior part as well. So The same, so what usually you find a silent chest. So now about the breath sounds. What is the normal breath sound? It is vesicular breath sounds, where what you say, the inspiratory phase is actually more than the expiratory phase, and there is no expiratory phase, and what do you say, there is no pause in between. But in case of COPD, and the abnormal breath sounds, you know, is bronchial breath sounds, and the type of bronchial breath sounds are tubular, cavernous and amphoric. I am not going into the details of that, but what kind of a breath sound do you anticipate or do you expect in emphysema? It is bronchovesicular breath sounds. So bronchovesicular breath sounds, where it is almost equaling, the expiration actually equals and prolongs than inspiration, and they also, so that is why that is maybe a natural mechanism where the body is trying to wash out carbon dioxide, or it is happening unknowingly. It is bronchovesicular type of breath sound. So this is regarding the breath sound. So what are the adventitious sounds that you can expect in case of a COPD? So there can be crepitation, there can be rhonchi in case of COPD. So it depends on what the patient came with. The patient can come with an infective exacerbation of COPD. The patient acquired a respiratory infection, and then the COPD is increased or probably aggravated, acute exacerbation happen. So based on that, you get crepitation, or if anyways there will be an element of bronchoconstriction, you also get what do you say, something called as rhonchi. So these are the basic what do you say, things that you can expect, or probably in auscultation of COPD. And then in other systems you have to check, as far as we are concerned, I mean more concentrated in respiratory system, there are certain other systems that you need to be aware of. Like in a cardiovascular system, what are the findings that you can get in case of COPD or emphysema? One is second heart split or second heart sound split, okay, and the third is, as if the patient is a corpulmonale patient, or probably if the patient is having a left ventricular issue, there can be tricuspid regurgitation, isn't it? Tricuspid regurgitation. So what happens, what in murmur do you get in tricuspid regurgitation? It is pansystolic murmur. And so this tricuspid, or probably the pansystolic murmur, tricuspid regurgitation might, I mean what do you say, accentuate during inspiration. Accentuate during inspiration, that is known as the Carvalho's sign. Okay, so in auscultation, another thing what we have to check is the vocal resonance. So we have checked for the vocal fremetus, isn't it? And it was found to be low. The same thing we have to check, or probably when we do with the stethoscope, we assess the vocal resonance. So in the same area we auscultate, and we found it to be very low. So that is also seen in emphysema. So this is a very short, or probably a very brief class, or probably an approach to a COPD. And regarding the theory of COPD, our professor Dr. Udayabhaskaran sir has actually posted a very good class online. You can go refer to that, and you can always take points from that. So this was just an attempt to make you people a little clear about the things that we do, or examination that we do in case of an emphysema or a COPD patients. A detailed respiratory system examination where all other entities of medicine, or probably the respiratory medicine, will be covered. That will be taken later on. Thank you. Thank you.